come close. Great to see you all here. Thanks for coming, folks. Before we kick off this afternoon, I'm going to introduce Uncle Michael West from the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council to do a welcome to country for us. Thanks, Uncle Michael.
Thank you, everyone. Pajati Gamaroo Gadigal Eora. G'day and welcome to Gadigal land and Eora land. And what I was going to say, I was just having a conversation this evening with you and others, and the land is so important. And that we need to protect our land when you think about it, and also the native animals, the koalas and that. Everything has a role in life. It's so important to understand that. And I was thinking, like through the lockdown, that we going out in my backyard and watching the ibis, aka the Petition, and watching it in the forest, in the tree up there. Seeing it how it fed its baby and the different noises it makes, is sort of keeping me somewhat sane through the pandemic, because I was actually in lockdown and also curfews we had where we are. And that, you know, Mother Nature is important to us, and we only have one planet, don't we? Yes. It's important that we take a moment's silence to pay respects to the ancestors, and also, when you think about it, the rain that we've had and going to have, and the firestorms that we've had have all been part of what's been happening. Mother has been speaking louder and louder every decade. We can do things smarter. You can develop in a way that's sustainable, and we can do things a very lot smarter in the way we do things. There's materials that are developed that can replace what we have, and also with having plantations is important. It's so important when you think about it. It's also important to take a moment to, as I said, pay respects to ancestors, reflect our journey to here right now. Sorry, the wind. Reflect the journey here right now, where we are, and about also paying respect to those we've lost in the pandemic, because we're not through the pandemic yet. We've still got a way to go. And those who are vulnerable with underlying conditions, when you think about our Aboriginal people communities, older people, and also people with disabilities, and also those with compromised immunity. So if we just have a moment's silence and a moment of reflection, thank you. Hawkesbury and the of Georges, these are the aquatic brothers of your nation. To any of my Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters out there, we warmly welcome you from the country, the clan, the tribe, and the nation you come from. To all our brothers and sisters, and we all belong to that one mob, one tribe community, we warmly welcome you from the family, neighbourhood, community, and ultimately the country you come from. We share a little blue marble floating through the ever-expanding cosmos. On behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, our members, board, elders, welcome here today. It is important that members of the community do have their say, and we do that through our voting and through our voices and protests, which is all part of a democracy, and we need to keep our democracy strong. So always was, always will be Aboriginal land, never ceded, and have a safe journey home to family loved ones today, and let's all work and walk together for better outcomes, and it can be achieved. And come together and have the hard conversations that we need to have.
Issue. This is something that people across the state really care about, and that has really been demonstrated with the number of people who've signed the petition. Lots of work went into getting 20,000 people, more than 20,000 people to sign that petition and to have this rally here today. So I just want to thank the Bob Brown Foundation, Banyana Matters, Coast Watchers, BirdLife Australia, the National Parks Association, the Knitting Nanas, North Coast Environment Council, and the South East Region Conservation Alliance for all of your work. I'm sure there are many other groups that have... This time when I say "say thou," you're going to say "forests." Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
When I say thou, you say forest. Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
When I say thou, you say forest. Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
Say thou!
Forest!
Woo! Good work, guys.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael, for that welcome. And Takisa, where are you again? Thank you for standing up for the koalas, for the gliders, for the forests. If it wasn't for you and the community around Broome and making such an issue of this, we wouldn't be here today and they wouldn't be hearing you in this building. Thank you for your work and advocacy. Earlier this week, the Premier of New South Wales stood up and said we need to put people before plants in this state. I think he misunderstands. This planet doesn't need us, we need it. And we need to protect it. There are two things you need to know about forests. 70% of all terrestrial species live in them. And 3/4 of all the carbon stored in a tree is stored in the last half of its life. Protecting large trees in mature forests is the single biggest thing we can do to protect biodiversity, the biodiversity that we rely on to live. It is the single biggest thing you can do to take action on climate change. This government is doing the opposite. It is cutting them down. The state-owned forestry corporation is industrially logging them. It is allowing broad-scale land clearing across this state. It has decided, public policy, government policy has decided on an extinction crisis in New South Wales, and that can't continue any longer. You have an election just in a few months. You have a decision to take, you and all the other people in this state. We can decide to continue that extinction, or we can elect people who will go into that place in the next term and end native logging in New South Wales. And we can imagine a very, very different future for our forests. They can be the ecological and recreational reserves for our community. They can be the carbon stores that do the heavy lifting on carbon climate action in New South Wales. They can be places where nature can thrive, where we can enjoy them, where it can facilitate the clean air, provide the clean air and the clean water that we rely on and that nature relies on. And we know that we can actually have a sustainable timber industry in plantations. I've been on the inquiry which travelled around the state in the last couple of years looking at this very issue. There was agreement there, all sides of politics. We can do this with plantations. We don't need to destroy our forests for some hardwood floorboards in a couple of homes on the eastern suburbs and the northern beaches of Sydney. We have a different approach we can take with our forests, and we need to protect them. And you need to be part of the action in the lead up to next March and the election to protect our native forests. Thank you so much for being here today.
Wallawani. Firstly, I would like to thank Uncle Michael for that beautiful welcome to country. I would like to pay respects to my elders, both past and present, who have been caring for this country and environment for thousands of years, and acknowledge the future elders who will continue caring for country. My name is Takisa Frank. I am a member of the Broome State Forest Conservation Group and a resident in the Shelly Crossing area in southern Shoalhaven. I have been campaigning to see an end to public native forest logging since 2020, probably a lot less longer than many people here today. However, in this short amount of time, I have learned so much about this industry and the impact it is having on our environment, biodiversity, local community, jobs and more. I have lived my entire life surrounded by the Broome and Shelly Crossing State Forest area. When many people think of their homes, they think of the four walls that surround their house. However, I think about the forest that surrounds me and the Clyde River, which I learned to swim in. Currently, I'm seeing the forest that surrounds me destroyed by our New South Wales State Government. Today, I'm not only speaking on behalf of myself, but the other people that live in these communities and the New South Wales residents that want to see an end to this destruction. The bushfires in 2019 and 2020 had catastrophic impacts on our community and environment across New South Wales. Just under 1 million hectares of native forest was burnt and an estimated 3 billion animals were killed or displaced. Everyone has a story about those bushfires, no matter where you live. Mine includes my brother, sister, dad and I fighting for a week straight, not only to protect our home, but the local blueberry farm and the forest that surrounds us. Directly after these bushfires, when we should have been recovering as a community. However, instead we had to go into protection mode because Forestry Corporation of New South Wales came in less than 3 months after these fires and started logging these forests, the same forests we tried so hard to protect. The habitat of many critically endangered and threatened species are in state forests all over New South Wales. These species include the greater glider, swift parrot, koalas, gang cockatoos, large forest owls, and so many more. By continuing to log these areas and remove hollow-buried trees, we are increasing the chance of more species becoming endangered and potentially extinct. Not only would ending public native forest logging protect the habitats of these threatened and endangered flora and fauna, but also have a positive action for climate change. This is because trees draw carbon down from the atmosphere and store it in the tree. The older the tree, the more carbon that it stores. Cutting down trees releases carbon into our atmosphere, having an impact on climate change. We are currently in a climate crisis, and we need to take action such as this to end public native forest logging to ensure the next generation of people have a sustainable and livable planet. The Agriculture Minister, Dougal Saunders, has put out a response to this petition, and I just want to address some of the things that were stated in that letter. The Minister argued that the forestry industry is in fact a sustainable industry and needed for economic reasons. However, in 2021, the Forestry Corporation suffered a $20 million loss, which resulted in New South Wales taxpayers paying $441 per hectare of forest being logged. We are literally just paying for our environment to be destroyed. Mr. Saunders also stated that jobs get created from this logging industry. However, I think the government and opposition need to understand that the current industry is not sustainable and those jobs aren't going to be around for much longer. Sustainable management of our forests and a plantation industry provide far more jobs than the current numbers. There are many opportunities for our state forests that would be better for the economy and not destroy our environment. A recent report was delivered that highlighted native forests are worth more to the communities that have them than nature-based tourism rather than the narrow and destructive logging that currently occurs. As someone that works in an agricultural tourism business, I have already seen the opportunities that are available and the impacts it has on communities by providing jobs and the flow-on effects it has on the environment. I am passionate about seeing a transition out of public native forest logging, not only because I'm an environmental activist, but I am on the forefront of this destruction. Less than 2 months ago, I sat on my balcony with my family and watched as Forestry New South Wales logged around us. We sat on that same balcony 2 years ago and watched that same forest burn. The only difference between those two events is one can be stopped by a decision that the New South Wales Government makes. Lastly, I would like to thank everyone that signed the petition and has come along today. I think when we first started the petition, we were like, oh, 20,000, that's a lot of signatures, and didn't think we were going to get there. But we did, thanks to everyone. I'd also like to thank the environmental organisations and people that supported and shared the petition, including the Bob Brown Foundation, the Nature Conservation Council, Friends of the Forest, Manana Matters, Wires, BirdLife Australia, Nitty Netters, North Coast Environmental Council, and many more. No matter the outcome of this debate, this petition has been very powerful to raise awareness of this issue and tell our representatives that we want to see a transition and we will vote for change in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Takisa. And thanks for all your wonderful work getting the petition up and getting those signatures. So I reckon it's time we get the energy up a bit in here and we show those folks over the road what we're all about. So when I say, when koalas and gliders are under attack, what do we do? When koalas and gliders are under attack, what do we do? When koalas and gliders are under attack, what do we do? When koalas and gliders are under attack, what do we do? When koalas and gliders are under attack, what do we do? When koalas and gliders are under attack.
Stand up, right back.
Thanks, guys. I'd like to introduce our next speaker now. We won't stand by while these iconic species go extinct. Their habitat must be protected. Logging native forests is mindless and doesn't stack up from an environmental or an economic perspective. State forests can generate more income through their protection than through logging, through recreation, tourism and carbon abatement. Western Australian and Victorian governments have already got a plan in place to commit to ending this industry, and it's really time that New South Wales followed suit. I'm sure a lot of you here have already signed the petition, but the petition that will be in the Legislative Assembly this afternoon calls on the Legislative Assembly to develop a plan to transition the native forest industry to 100% sustainable plantations by 2024, and in the interim, place a moratorium on public native forest logging until the regulatory framework reflects the recommendations of the leaked NRC report, to immediately protect high conservation value forests through gazettal in the national parks estate, and to ban the use of native forest materials as biomass fuel. Now is absolutely the time to be ramping up the campaign to end native forest logging. We have an election in March next year, and we expect commitments from all sides of politics on this issue. Yesterday I was in Parliament House meeting with MPs to talk about these issues that are critical to the next election. We spoke about ending native forest logging, and a member of the current coalition government said to me and a colleague of mine that we must ramp up our campaign on this issue. So we know that the government is watching and that they're listening, and that we must ramp up the campaign to end native forest logging. Public pressure works. Signing petitions works. You being here today works. Let's keep up the pressure to end native forest logging.
Thank you. So, you've heard very loud and clear, I don't need to tell you, we need to protect our public native forests. The jury's in, the case is made, there is no doubt that we will protect our public native forests. It's not a matter of if, this is now about when we do it. We need to do it now. We need to do it immediately. I first locked onto a bulldozer 31 years ago, and that was to protect our old growth forests. That's where I got the incredible experience up in the backcountry in the north at Chalundi, where I first experienced what biodiversity and forest-dependent ecosystems really look like, what they look like when they're alive, when they're thriving, and when they're healthy. It's greater gliders shadowing through the landscape, it's powerful owls grabbing them out of the sky, and it's forest ground-dwelling mammals scurrying across the ground. We're going to lose it. We're going to lose this if we keep doing what we're doing. We've got a limited period of time. You've heard today, there is a state election in March. Every one of us needs to drastically mobilise to change this government. We know this government is committed to carrying on. Dougal Saunders, the Minister for Agriculture, who happens to also be the Minister for Forests, has actually said and stands hand on heart convinced that cutting down these public native forests is good for climate change. That is what he has said in his letter in response to this petition. There is some madness going on, and we need to stop it. We need to keep telling the story. We need to get these guys that are in there right now that are being divisive. They are not listening to the science, and they are not listening to the community. And let's be real, what are they doing? They're trying to punish the very people, like the brave people over here that I can see that have travelled down from Bellingen today, who are locked on. They are dragging these beautiful people through the court system and subjecting them to horrible, frightening penalties because they are standing up for our forests right now. The mob in there have got to go. They are dangerous. They have been in for 12 years. And it's now our forest time to speak, and we need to get them out. So we all need to work together. There is no more compromise. We need to get this mob out, and we need to get people in there who understand what the forest needs right now. And that is, we need to protect these forests, and we need to add them to our protected area network as we build it. Because we are talking about 2% of New South Wales, a really significant, important 2%. of New South Wales that we add to our protected area network as we build it to 30% of New South Wales by 2030. Because we need to do it, and we need to do it like our lives depend on it. Because guess what? They do! So, all together, all of you, I thank you so much for coming here today, for the work that you do on First Nations country all across this state, the unceded lands of Aboriginal people, where we are all working together to protect these forests forever, to build our protected area network and to face this terrible extinction crisis. We can turn things around, but we've got to get political and we've got to speak up and we've got to get this mob out of that government. Thank you all.
Is Sean O'Shaughnessy. Sean is from the North East Forest Alliance and I believe is also joining us from the North Coast today.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, I'm Sean O'Shaughnessy. I'm from NEFA. I come from Bundjalung country, and thank you for having us here in this wonderful place, in front of this wonderful house, where there's all of these great people in there who want to do the right thing. There's a lot of them who do. I've just been speaking to a lot of people from the ALP this week, and they would like to do the right thing, but they are afraid that there's some sort of electoral cost to them. So there's a message that those of us who are determined to see our public native forests protected need to get to them, which is there is no electoral cost in protecting our public native forests. There is real electoral pain in not protecting them. You know, we care about the koalas, we care about the climate, we want to see the world for a better place for our children. People want to protect their jobs. There's certain people want to protect their jobs and they want to get better jobs, and we need to convince them that the way to do that is to get our public native forests out of the ungentle hands of the logging industry and into reserves. We need to get the timber industry into those sustainable plantations as urgently as we possibly can. So that means all of us here are the people who are going to be able to stand back in the future and say we were the ones who saved our native forests from the logging. That's us. We are all that they have. We must be the ones who do it, because there is no other option. Without them, we are lost. Now, excuse my language, but without our native forests, we're all fucked. It's just, it's pretty straightforward. If we can't save the native forest and we won't save the climate, we're going to lose the planet. So, our determination needs to become infectious. We need to bring our friends.
So, with what's going on here today, why are we really fighting for this? I mean, we shouldn't have to, is that right?
Well, I think this is crucial to our survival as a nation, as a planet, that if we don't protect our native forests,